The Story of Dr. Dolittle by Hugh Lofting. Abridged by Taylor Seth Hall. Part 1. Animal Language. Once upon a time, many years ago, when our grandfathers were little children, there was a doctor, and his name was Dolittle. John Dolittle, M.D. M.D. means that he was a proper doctor and knew a whole lot. He lived in a little town called Puddleby on the Marsh. All the folks, young and old, knew him well by sight, and whenever he walked down the street in his high hat, everyone would say, "There goes the doctor, he's a clever man." And the dogs and the children would all run up and follow behind him, and even the crows that lived in the church tower would caw and nod their heads. The house he lived in on the edge of town was quite small, but his garden was very large and had a wide lawn and stone seats and weeping willows hanging over. His sister, Sarah Dolittle, was housekeeper for him, but the doctor looked after the garden himself. He was very fond of animals and kept many kinds of pets. Besides the goldfish in the pond, he had rabbits in the pantry, white mice in his piano, a squirrel in the linen closet, and a hedgehog in the cellar. He had a cow with a calf, too, and an old lame horse, 25 years of age, and chickens and pigeons and 2 lambs, and many other animals. But his favorite pets were Dab-Dab the duck, Jip the dog, Gub-Gub the pig, Polynesia the parrot, and the owl Tutu. His sister used to grumble about all these animals, and said they made the house untidy, and one day when an old lady with rheumatism came to see the doctor, she sat on the hedgehog who was sleeping on the sofa, and never came to see him any more. Then his sister, Sarah Dolittle, came to him and said, "John, how can you expect sick people to come and see you when you keep all these animals in the house? That's the 4th person these animals have driven away. We are getting poorer every day. If you go on like this, none of the best people will have you for a doctor." "But I like the animals better than the best people," said the doctor. "You are ridiculous," said his sister, and walked out of the room. So, as time went on, the doctor got more and more animals, and the people who came to see him got less and less, till at last he had no one left except the cat's meat man, who didn't mind any kind of animals. But the cat's meat man wasn't very rich, and he only got sick once a year at Christmas time, when he would give the doctor 6 pence for a bottle of medicine. 6 pence a year wasn't enough to live on, even in those days, long ago. And if the doctor hadn't had some money saved up in his money box, no one knows what would have happened. And he kept on getting still more pets. And of course it cost a lot to feed them, and the money he had saved up grew littler and littler. He sold his piano and let the mice live in a bureau drawer, but the money he got for that too began to go, so he sold the brown suit he wore on Sundays and went on becoming poorer and poorer. And now when he walked down the street in his high hat, people would say to one another, "There goes John Dolittle, M.D. There was a time when he was the best-known doctor in the West Country. Look at him now. He hasn't any money, and his stockings are full of holes." But the dogs and the cats and the children still ran up and followed him through the town, the same as they had done when he was rich. It happened one day that the doctor was sitting in his kitchen, talking with the cat's meat man, who had come to see him with a stomachache. "Why don't you give up being a people's doctor and be an animal doctor?" asked the cat's meat man. The parrot Polynesia was sitting in the window looking out at the rain and singing a sailor song to herself. She stopped singing and started to listen. "You see, doctor," the cat's meat man went on, "you know all about animals, much more than what these here vets do. That book you wrote about cats, why, it's wonderful. I can't read or write myself, or maybe I'd write some books. But my wife, Theodosia, she's a scholar, she is, and she read your book to me. Well, it's wonderful, that's all can be said, wonderful. You might have been a cat yourself. You know the way they think. And listen, you can make a lot of money doctoring animals, do you know that? You see, I'd send all the old women who had sick cats or dogs to you, and if they didn't get sick fast enough, I could put something in the meat I sell 'em to make 'em sick, see?" "Oh, no," said the doctor quickly. "You mustn't do that. That wouldn't be right." "Oh, I didn't mean real sick," answered the cat's meat man. "Just a little something to make them droopy like was what I had reference to. But as you say, maybe it ain't quite fair on the animals. But they'll get sick anyway. And look, all the farmers round about who had lame horses and weak lambs, they'd come. Be an animal doctor." When the cat's meat man had gone, the parrot flew off the window onto the doctor's table and said,
"Ah, that's what you ought to do. Be an animal doctor. Give the silly people up if they haven't brains enough to see you're the best doctor in all the world. Take care of animals instead. Be an animal doctor."
"Oh, there are plenty of animal doctors," said John Dolittle, putting the flower pots outside on the windowsill to get the rain.
"Yes, there are plenty,"
said Polynesia.
"but none of them are any good at all. Now listen, doctor. Did you know that animals can talk?"
"I knew that parrots could talk," said the doctor.
"Ah, we parrots can talk in two languages, people's language and birds' language," said Polynesia proudly. "If I say, 'Polly wants a cracker,' you understand me. But hear this. Oh, you feel me?"
"Good gracious!" cried the doctor. "What does that mean?"
"That means, is the porridge hot yet?"
"My, you don't say so," said the doctor. "You never talked that way to me before."
"What would have been the good? You wouldn't have understood me if I had."
"Tell me some more," said the doctor, all excited, and he rushed over to the dresser drawer and came back with a journal and a pencil. "Now don't go too fast and I'll write it down. This is interesting, very interesting, something quite new. Give me the bird's ABC first, slowly now." So that was the way the doctor came to know that animals had a language of their own and could talk to one another. And all that afternoon, while it was raining, Polynesia sat on the kitchen table giving him bird words to put down in the book. At tea time, when the dog Jip came in, the parrot said to the doctor,
"See, he's talking to you."
"Looks to me as though he was scratching his ear," said the doctor.
"Ah, but animals don't always speak with their mouths,"
said the parrot, raising her eyebrows.
"They talk with their ears, with their feet, with their tails. Sometimes they don't want to make a noise. Do you see now the way he's twitching up one side of his nose?"
"What's that mean?"
"That means, can't you see that it has stopped raining?"
Polynesia answered.
"He is asking you a question. Dogs nearly always use their noses for asking questions."
After a while, with the parrot's help, the doctor got to learn the language of the animals so well that he could talk to them himself and understand everything they said. Then he gave up being a people's doctor altogether. As soon as the cat's meat man had told everyone that John Dolittle was going to become an animal doctor, old ladies began to bring him their pet pugs and poodles who had eaten too much cake, and farmers came many miles to show him sick cows and sheep. One day a plough horse was brought to him, and the poor thing was terribly glad to find a man who could talk in horse language.
"You know, doctor," said the horse, "that vet over the hill knows nothing at all. He has been treating me 6 weeks now for spavins. What I need is spectacles. I'm going blind in one eye. There's no reason why horses shouldn't wear glasses the same as people, but that stupid man over the hill never even looked at my eyes. He kept on giving me big pills. I tried to tell him, but he couldn't understand a word of horse language. What I need is spectacles."
Of course," said the doctor. "I'll get you some at once."
"I would like a pair like yours," said the horse, "only green. They'll keep the sun out of my eyes while I'm ploughing the field."
"Certainly," said the doctor. "Green ones you shall have."
"You know what the trouble is, sir?"
said the plough horse as the doctor opened the front door to let him out.
"The trouble is that anybody thinks he can doctor animals because the animals don't complain. As a matter of fact, it takes a much cleverer man to be a really good animal doctor than it does to be a good people's doctor. My farmer's boy thinks he knows all about horses. He has got as much brain as a potato bug. I'm a pretty quiet creature, as a rule, very patient with people, don't make much fuss, but it was bad enough to have the vet give me the wrong medicine. When will my glasses be ready?"
"I'll have them for you next week," said the doctor. "Come in again Tuesday. Good morning." Then John Dolittle got a big pair of green spectacles, and the plough horse stopped going blind in one eye and could see as well as ever. and soon it became a common sight to see farm animals wearing glasses in the country round Puddleby, and a blind horse was a thing unknown. And so it was with all the other animals that were brought to him. As soon as they found out he could speak their language, they told him where the pain was and how they felt, and of course it was easy for him to cure them. Now all these animals went back and told their friends that there was a doctor in the little house with a big garden who really was a doctor. And whenever any creatures got sick, not only horses and cows and dogs, but all the little things of the fields like harvest mice and water voles, badgers and bats, they came at once to his house on the edge of the town, so that his big garden was nearly always crowded with animals trying to get in to see him. There were so many that came that he had to have special doors made for the different kinds. He wrote horses over the front door, cows over the side door, and sheep on the kitchen door. Each kind of animal had a separate door. Even the mice had a tiny tunnel made for them into the cellar, where they waited patiently in rows for the doctor to come round to them. And so, in a few years' time, every living thing for miles and miles got to know about John Dolittle, M.D., and the birds who flew to other countries in the winter told the animals in foreign lands of the wonderful doctor of Puddleby-on-the-Marsh. In this way he became famous among the animals all over the world, and he was happy and liked his life very much. One afternoon, when the doctor was busy writing in his book, Polynesia sat in the window, as she nearly always did, looking out at the leaves blowing about in the garden. Presently she laughed out loud. "What is it, Polynesia?" asked the doctor, looking up from his book.
I was just thinking,
said the parrot, and she went on looking at the leaves. "What were you thinking?"
I was thinking about people,
said Polynesia.
People make me sick. They think they're so wonderful. The only thing in animal language that people have learned to understand is when a dog wags his tail, he means I'm glad. Funny. You are the first man to talk like us. Oh, sometimes people annoy me dreadfully, talking about the dumb animals. Dumb? Ha! I knew a macaw once who could talk every language, even Greek. An old professor with a grey beard bought him. He said the old man didn't talk Greek right, and he couldn't stand listening to him teach the language wrong. I often wonder what's become of him. That bird knew more geography than people will ever know. People! Golly! I suppose if people learn to fly, we shall never hear the end of it.
And soon now the doctor began to make money again, and his sister Sarah bought a new dress and was happy. Some of the animals who came to see him were so sick that they had to stay at the doctor's house for a week, and when they were getting better they used to sit in chairs on the lawn, and often, even after they had got well, they did not want to go away. They liked the doctor and his house so much, and he never had the heart to refuse them when they asked if they could stay with him. So in this way he went on, getting more and more pets. Next week on the Storytime Classics podcast, Dr. Dolittle receives a message from the monkeys in the jungles of Africa, and he borrows a ship to sail there and help them.